Good morning. We'd like to welcome you to another edition of the Sunday School Review. This week's Sunday School lesson is entitled Passover with the King. Now, this is when Jesus is celebrating the Passover with his disciples. Now, the lesson is taken from Matthew, the 26th chapter, verses 17 through 30. And in last week's lesson, we saw Jesus made his triumph entry into Jerusalem. Now, there was a large crowd that was there, and they were celebrating the Passover celebration. Now, this is Jesus' final days of his earthly ministry. At this time, the Jewish leaders had plotted to kill Jesus. And so when we look at this lesson, when it starts at verse 17 here. Now, this is about a couple of days before the Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Now, he's at this time, Jesus is going to be handed over to the chief priests and to be crucified. Now, there are two outlines here. The first outline is entitled "Reading for the Passover." Now, the Passover is the oldest feast here, a celebration. And now the Passover commemorates the Israelites' freedom from Egyptian bondage. Now, it was marked by they were to kill a lamb and put the blood over the doorposts. And if the blood was found over, that is, the blood of the lamb that was killed or slain was found over that doorpost, the death angel will pass over them. Whereas if it was not, the firstborn would die. Now, let's go into verse 17, which is where our lesson starts, in the preparation. It says, "Now the first day of the feast of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus, saying unto him, Where wilt thou that we should prepare to eat the Passover?" So they asked him a question, that is Jesus a question, and where are we going to prepare a space, a room that we can eat the Passover meal? Now, in verse 18 and 19, and this is Jesus' response. He said, "Go into the city to such a man and say unto him, Thy master said, My time is at hand. I will keep the Passover at thy house with my disciples." And the disciples did as Jesus had appointed them, and they made ready for the Passover. Now, as he instructed his disciples, and he sent two of them. Now, in this particular case, unlike last week, where Jesus sent a couple of his disciples into the town to secure the donkey, they were unnamed. But now this particular case, the two disciples that he sent is Peter and John. And we find that not in Matthew, but in Luke. Luke records the two disciples' names. This is Peter and John were the two disciples that Jesus instructed to go and to prepare a place for them to eat the Passover meal. Now, and if we look in verse 19, it says here, 18 and 19, my master said, my time is at hand. In other words, Jesus knew that the time that he would be sacrificed, that he would shed his blood for the salvation of the world, he knew that that time was at hand. That's why he said in these verses, my time is at hand. Now, it wasn't the fact that they took him before his time. Okay, his time had came. Yes, he was betrayed and turned over to the chief priest and the elders, but not before his time. His time that he would sacrifice his life had come. And another point, Jesus said, no person take my life, I lay it down. Okay, so his time had came that he should give his life for sin. Okay, now, so let's go now to verse 20. And this is the Passover. This is outline is entitled the Passover plot. This is the second outline, the Passover plot. And it starts at verse 20. And now when the evening was come, now that's when they eat the Passover meal. And evening, he sat down with the 12. You notice that the 12. Yes, Judas is there, the 12. And verse 21 is the betrayal. And as they did eat, he said, verily I say unto you that one of you, Jesus knew, he said, one of you shall betray me. Now, the disciples did not know who the betrayer. And at this particular time in this lesson, Judas had already plotted, made a plot to betray Jesus. And as we know, for 30 pieces of silver, he had already did the deal. Okay, Jesus knew that, but his disciples did not know this. Now, obviously, Peter being present, if Peter had knew that, Peter would have sliced him up like Wonder Bread. So none of the disciples did not know this, but Jesus did. Okay, let's go to verse 22. Well, 21, Jesus said, one of you going to betray me, okay, as they were sitting, eating the Passover meal. Now, let's go to 22. And they were exceedingly sorrowful, and began every one of them to say unto him, Lord, is it I? And 23, he said, and he answered and said, he that dippeth his hand with me in the dish, the same shall betray me. Now, because they were sitting around a table, now the idea is possible they didn't know who it was because they was all dipping into the dish. However, some commentators said there was either John or Judas because they sat on either side of Jesus. So in other words, because John was on one side and Judas was on the other, that's what some commentators speculate, that it was either Judas or John. John was the beloved disciple. Okay, so but they did not really know who it was, because in one sense they were all dipping in the dish. Okay, so let's go to 23. But Jesus knew. The other disciples, however, did not know. Let's go to verse 24. And this is Jesus giving a warning to the person that betrays him. Verse 24 says, the Son of Man goes as it is written of him, but woe unto the man to whom the Son of Man is betrayed. And we know that to be Judas. Okay, it had been good for that man if he had not been born. In other words, it was better that that person had not been born. So that's what Jesus said about the person that would betray him. Jesus knew, the disciples was not aware of who would betray him. Now, in verse 25, then Judas, which betrayed him, as again I said, for 30 pieces of silver, answered and said, Master, is it I? He said unto him, thou hast said. Now, if we go to John's gospel, we find out that even though Jesus said this, no one, according to John, no one understood what he meant by this statement. Now, around that time, that's when Judas left the room. And the disciples thought that since Judas was the person that held the money back, he was the treasurer, they thought Jesus was telling him, go and make preparation, okay? So Judas left, but they still was not aware of what that statement that Jesus made meant. They was not aware, according to scripture. They were still not aware when Jesus said, and when Judas said, Master, is I, he said unto him, thou hast said. So Jesus was pointing him out, but the disciples was not aware of that. They didn't know that Jesus was pointing him out. Okay, and that's when Judas, round about that time, he left the room. Now, okay, let's go on with this. Actually, the third outline. Now, it says the Passover and the kingdom, verse 26, starting with verse 26. And as they were eating, Jesus took bread, blessed it, and brake it, and gave it to the disciples and said, take, eat, this is my body. And he took the cup and gave thanks, and gave it to them, saying, drink ye all of it, for this is my blood of the New Testament, which is shed for many for the remission of sin. Now, in this particular, these particular verses here, Jesus is now given a new meaning to the Passover, or is referred to as the Lord's Supper, or the Last Supper. Now, as I said earlier, Judas did take part in the beginning of the Passover meal, but it's doubtful that he took part in the completion of the Passover meal. In other words, this part here where he take the bread and break it, and the cup and give it to his disciples and says, take, drink this. This is my blood of the New Testament, which is shed for the remission of sin. He was going to go to the cross and shed his blood for the forgiveness of sin. And so this is the new meaning that Jesus gives to the Passover meal, or we refer to it as the Lord's Supper. Okay, and it has new meaning. It is to commemorate his blood that was shed, and we are to remember, remember what he did on the cross. That is, sacrifice his life for the forgiveness of sin. That is what we are when we partake in the Lord's Supper. That is what we are doing. We are remembering what the blood that was shed on Calvary for the remission of sin. That is the meaning, that is the new meaning of the Passover or the Lord's Supper. And this is the part that most likely Judas did not attend, because as I said, he told Judas to go and take care, do whatever you're going to do it quickly. And as I said, the disciples thought he was talking about making preparation because he had the money bag. He was a treasurer. Okay. But Jesus knew that was not the case. Let's see. We read 28, I believe. Let's go to 29. But I say unto you, I will not drink henceforth of the fruit of the vine until the day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom. And verse 30, the last verse. And when they had sung a hymn, they went out into the Mount of Olives. So as I said before, this is the commemoration of the Passover meal, and we refer to that now. The new meaning is this is the Lord's Supper, or the Last Supper, the Lord's Supper. When we celebrate that, when we commemorate that, we remember what Christ did on the cross for the remission of sin. And as we take that and as we do that, the scripture tells us often we do that, we do it in remembrance of the sacrifice that was made for the sins of mankind. We'd like to thank you for watching today. We ask you to join us next week for another edition of the Sunday School Review. Thank you.